y'all, welcome back to our channel. Today we're going to have a little mini roast session of ourselves and our amateur mistakes that we made in our early works of literature. There were some mistakes that we made that we look back on now and we're like, ugh, oof. And we see people now making those same mistakes. So we wanted to make this video to warn you guys. Don't do these things. They're really easy to fix. So that's what this is for. Don't leave before this video is over because we're saving the biggest mistake and the most important mistake that you need to correct for last.
Number one, and I know we've spoken about this one before, but this is really important when you're trying to make your story timeless, and that is adding dates. We don't recommend you do it. This does change if you are writing something that is a historical fiction, or if you, or not even necessarily historical, but if there's going maybe even classic, like 70s, 60s, 80s, something that's set back in time. But if you're trying to make something right now and you want to give the reader a sense of kind of urgency for right now, by all means, do not put a date in there, because now it feels like it already happened. And even if you're writing in past tense, there's a feeling of you kind of feel how the story's already going to end up because you got a date with it. So try to avoid using dates. Yeah. You're better off keeping it really general, 3 years later, 5 years later, something to that effect, rather than saying 2021.
Mm-hmm. Number two, this is sort of the same thing. Putting pop culture references that aren't timeless. You could reference, Star Wars or Titanic or something like that, and anybody across, time is going to get that. But don't put something in that somebody's not going to get in 20 years. Sort of on the same lines, don't say like iPhone 12, because somebody might be reading this and there's like an iPhone 62. So while you wrote it, the iPhone 12 might have been like the best thing, and then someone's reading it 15 years later and there's like the iPhone that's like invisible. So whatever you're writing about, it seems really lame. Phone. If you really want to make it clear that your character uses Apple, which I will admit, I do not want people thinking our characters use Android. So I do often say iPhone. Just say iPhone. You don't want to say the number.
Also, try to avoid saying anything that's really popular as far as sayings go. For instance, you might not want to use, oh, she was mad AF. There might come a time when nobody's using AF anymore and it seems weird, and it's definitely dating the story. Number three, for the love of goodness, do not make your love interest too perfect. I think sometimes when we start off writing, we have this idea that a perfect character means a lovable character, but that can turn annoying really, really quick. You need to give them some relatable flaws, because those flaws even become part of what makes them so charming.
I did that in Cruel Trust with Andrew. He was too perfect. A lot of people loved him, still love him, and now I've written him with flaws. But back at the beginning, people be like, he's too perfect. You need to give him something,
yes.
And so when I rewrote, I had to definitely give him something for people to be like, oh yeah, that's annoying about him, but we still love him. Number four, overstating internal conflict. Things that your characters are struggling with, like they feel like they're not as smart as their sister. And they say it over and over again. Oh my God, we get it. Stop beating the dead horse.
Number five kind of goes with that, and that is repeating physical characteristics. We see this a lot with eyes. Blue eyes. He had blue eyes. His blue eyes. His azure eyes. His sky.
His blue orbs.
We got it. He's got blue eyes. When we overstate things, it kind of becomes offensive to the reader. Like, you don't think they're smart enough to remember that he has blue eyes. So make sure that you're really putting them in. If we want to touch base on the blue eyes again, that kind of what we talked about in the past about clothing, that we're really saving that for an intense moment where we're trying to drive a point home, where really your character, the love interest or whatnot, might be really paying attention to the color of the eyes because it's so swoony at that moment.
Using the same physical tics for people, blinking, smirking, glancing, grinning, whatever, over and over and over again. Oh my God. Like, we're guilty of it too, and our editors let us know that we are guilty of that.
Number 7 is overusing dialogue tags. Sometimes we feel the need to constantly put in there, he said, she said, he said, she said. Look, especially when we're dealing with 2 characters, it is not necessary. And really, when you're dealing with things like banter or whatnot, you can make it have like a quick comeback by assuming that once we've established who's speaking at the beginning and there's only 2 people there speaking, that the person responding is the other person. This really changes when there is more than 2 people in the room, because when they're all adding into the conversation, we need to make sure that it's clear who's speaking at the time. But sometimes we give them such a clear voice or something that is so uniquely theirs to say that we don't need a dialogue tag it, because we know Joe always calls her sweetheart. So that would be the only person speaking to her at this moment. So really get kind of creative with the way that your characters are speaking and making sure that voice is unique, and it'll save you from using dialogue tags.
And please do not use more than 1 dialogue tag in the same paragraph. On the same subject, number 8, do not use dialogue tags that aren't even dialogue tags. Like smiled, grinned. Those aren't dialogue tags. Those are actions. And I see this in published books. It's not a thing. I don't know how that gets past editors. I don't know if that's like a editor's preference or whatever, but both editors we've ever had have told us that's not a thing.
Think of it this way. If it's coming out of their mouth, like if I said to you, how do you say something? You'd open your mouth and do it. But if I told you, how do you smile? There's no words that come out through the smile. Like, you might be smiling as you said it. So he said smiling. That would be fine. Number 9 is what we commonly refer to as white room syndrome. And what that is when you are not giving any detail as to what the environment looks like. And we don't need to put in 4 or 5 sentences about somebody's bedroom. We just need to give enough to kind of give some insight into who they are or what the room looks like. So if you went into like an office and it was a lawyer's office, they might have shelves full of books, a big mahogany desk, and some leather chairs. That would be enough to give the reader an idea of what it looks like in there. I would also use lighting. I think is really important when you're first entering a room, is if it's bright, if it's dark, if it's giving, a warm feeling, or if it feels really sterile and cold. So those little descriptions are great ways to bring your reader into the environment with your character.
Number 10, using filler words like she saw, she heard, she knew, she felt. We know she saw. You're talking about a character. Obviously she saw because she got eyes. Especially if you're talking about first person. Like,
yes,
your character is telling the story, so obviously. But another thing is stood up, sat down. You don't need the up and the down. You don't need that.
In order to stand, you must move up. In order to sit, you must move down. Here's the number 1 thing amateur writers seem to always get wrong, and that is that their first draft must be perfect. Stop trying to make your first draft perfect. It's a first draft. It's going to be flawed. There's going to be plot holes. What you need to do is write. Get it all on paper, and then once you are done writing that first draft, go in and fill in the plot holes, read it through, figure out what works, what doesn't work. So don't think you have to get it right from the first time it goes down on the page.
And that's why you should not post it on Wattpad until you've written it all down once and read it through to make sure you don't have giant plot holes. Now, you don't have to listen to us. Obviously, we don't know everything, but I do think that we're right on that. So those are the things that you should not do as an amateur writer, and those are the things that we have done. We've done them all. So we've learned from our mistakes, so you should learn from them too.
If you want to go see what our stories look like after they've gone through, a couple edits, and hopefully not too many of these little amateur mistakes are in them. I don't think they are. I think we've kind of gotten past that. But you be the judge, and go check us out on Wattpad at Crystal and Felicity.
And if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and make sure you hit the notification bell so you never miss a Friday upload.
And as always, write what you love.